And for your information, Assemblymember Amiano's AB 295 is put over on Children's Adoption Services, as is Assemblymember Chesbro's AB 903 on electronic waste recycling. Both of those items have been put over if you're waiting for them. Senator Cox and Senator Leno have joined me, so we will go to the items where we're waiving presentation and take testimony on those items. That means we'll be starting with AB 138 by Ms. Hayashi. This is accounting firms peer review. This is AB 138 by Assemblymember Hayashi. Is there testimony in favor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Bob Peterson, President of the California Board of Accountancy.
Welcome.
We're in full support of AB 138. I and the board think it is the most important piece of consumer legislation in the accountancy area in the recent past. I am here today not to convince you to support an aye vote. I presume you have that, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. This is a suspense candidate. It meets the criteria for suspense, so we'll take testimony, and then if there's no objection, it will go to the suspense file and be heard when in August. Is there further testimony in favor? Is there any opposition testimony? And there is opposition. And, sir, if you could, well, I guess there's enough chairs. Come on up. Opposition testimony. Please give us your name.
Madam Chairperson, my name is David Tolkien, and I'm a member of the Society of California Accountants. And we're opposed to this bill unless amended. And briefly, in going back through some of the proposed staff proposals of the Board of Accountancy, I noticed that they have stated that they think that the cost of peer review is going to be approximately $400,000 a year. But further, in some of the proposed staff amendments that I've seen, they talk about the cost being 1/2 month of their reserve, which in my figures comes to $530,000, not $400,000. I just wanted to make that clear to everybody.
Thank you. Is there other testimony opposed?
Thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Guy Crouch. I'm a CPA here in Midtown Sacramento, and I'm also on the board of the Society of California Accountants. We are opposed to this legislation unless amended. We believe that there is a punitive nature to this legislation for the practitioner. We're also concerned that there is a lack of peer reviewers to handle the workload currently, and then to add more will drive the cost to the practitioner of peer review up significantly, which at least for my practice, I could not pass that along to the consumer. And the consumer doesn't, for the kind of work that I do.
And how will peer review increase the cost of your practice?
Well, right now, I am currently trying to stay ahead of the curve and getting a peer review, and my peer review right now is $2,000. It's not a benefit of my membership in the state society. I have to pay that out of pocket. I've elected to not do a certain type of audit which I had previously done, because my peer review would be $5,000 instead of the $2,000. And for doing one of those types of audits, I can't pass that along to the client.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Okay. That's good information. I appreciate that. Is there any additional testimony, either in favor or opposed? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Finance is neutral but does note concerns. The board indicates that the bill would result in increased costs of $69,000 in 9-10 and $424,000 in 10-11 and $415,000 ongoing to the accountancy fund. The ongoing costs include 2 positions to implement and maintain the peer review program, $28,000 for the peer review oversight committee, and $160,000 for an estimated 16 audit cases per year sent to the AG and the Office of Administrative Hearings.
Thank you. Members, again, this is a suspense item, and so without objection, it will go to the suspense file. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. And we have members in the hearing room, so we're going to go back to our file item order. Mr. Krikorian, you're going to present AB 548. Welcome. Please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. AB 548 will allow school districts and other local agencies to access and use reimbursements for state mandates much more quickly than typically occurs now. Under current practice, once a local agency receives reimbursement, they are subject to the possibility of a controller's audit within the following 3 years. Due to this possibility, often local agencies choose to hold the funds and not allocate them until after the 3-year audit window is passed, out of concern that an audit could result in a fiscal liability if exceptions are found. AB 548 will instead require that the audits be completed within 4 years from the time the claim was filed, rather than 3 years from the time the reimbursement payment on the claim was made by the state. By removing the current time delays, local governments will not have to wait years to access reimbursements for programs they have already completed.
Motion, Mr. Krikorian. Would you care to wrap up your comments, and we'll go to your witnesses?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a win-win, as the analysis points out, good for local governments and good for the general fund.
Excellent.
Ask for your
testimony?
Madam Chair, Jeff Frost, representing the school districts of Glendale, Pasadena, and Burbank. We are the sponsors of the bill. As Mr. Krikorian has said, this will give districts much more certainty, and we believe will save the state money in terms of audits. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Next, please.
Sandy Silverstein, Riverside County School Districts, in support.
Thank you.
Dennis Myers, California Association of School Business Officials, in support as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jonathan Clambath, the County of San Diego, in support.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
We believe that the bill could result in increased general fund costs as a result of fewer findings and claims of unfunded mandates. By limiting the amount of time the controller has to initiate an audit, fewer audit findings would be reported and overpayments could result.
Thank you. Members, we have not identified significant costs, so I need a motion do pass unless there's questions. Oh, you did. Thank you, Mr. Cox. Then we'll open the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Aye. Cox, aye. Corbett? Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Oropesa? Price? Runner? Aye. Runner, aye. Walters? Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee? Corbett, aye.
7-0.
Is it out? Mm-hmm. It is 7-0. Mr. Krikorian, the bill is out.
Thank you, Senators, very much.
Acknowledge that Mr. Runner has to go to EQ, and so he will be absent for a couple of minutes.
Because our agreed-upon procedure is when there's a policy committee in session with members absent, I'll keep the roll open if you let me go back to that. So let's keep the roll open on Krikorian. We're going to keep the roll open on that, Mr. Krikorian, just for the absent members. Let's see. We have Ms. Lowenthal, Assemblymember Lowenthal. Are you here? I don't see her. Mr. Swanson? Oh, beg your pardon. Well, let's see. Oh, Mr. Adams is next, Mr. Swanson. Sorry. We're going in file order.
It's okay, Mr. Chair. If he needs to go, he's welcome to go ahead.
And is it okay with Mr. Fong, too? Yeah. All right. Mr. Swanson, you win.
My goodness.
Welcome. It's your lucky day.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is great. Yeah. Madam Chair, thank you, and members of the committee. I'm presenting on AB 1198, the transitional assistance for reentry. This bill is designed to allow food stamps to those that have been incarcerated for drug felonies. We are victims of a recidivism rate of 70%. States that allow for the lifting of this lifetime ban have a lower recidivism rate than we do. This is a 100% federally funded program. There are no state funds involved. We believe that with the successful lifting of this ban, it will benefit us by reduction in our recidivism rate, which can save our state billions of dollars. It also will contribute to the local economy because these individuals would then be using these food stamps to increase sales tax revenues. And we just think it's time, now that we are faced with a crisis in our prison system, to approve this program that other states have approved without any difficulty. I'll ask my witnesses to self-introduce.
Testimony, please.
Madam Chair, Mike Carroll with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. We strongly support this bill. And I would note that really who benefits from this in most cases are the children in these families. Because in most cases, the people who would be coming out of prison, their eligibility would be based on the fact that they have young children. So when the parent comes home, if we don't increase the food stamp and give the parent their portion of the food stamp allotment, that means the family of 3 is now eating on a food stamp calculation really for 2 members of the family. This is all free federal money. We strongly encourage the committee to vote aye.
Thank you. Next, please.
Lillian Clark on behalf of the National Association of Social Workers in strong support of the bill.
All righty. Further testimony?
Good afternoon. Kevin Adden, Coalition of California Welfare Rights Organizations. We support the bill because we think human beings, especially little human beings, should be able to eat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony?
Madam Chair and members, Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association. We're opposed to the bill on policy grounds.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good afternoon. Robert Smith, California Department of Social Services. We're also opposed.
Thank you. Mr. Swanson, a similar bill was vetoed last year. Have you tried to address those issues in this bill?
Well, actually, it's been vetoed twice. And the first time it was vetoed, we corrected the veto with adding the training component to the bill because that was part of the veto statement. Then it was vetoed for that reason, the second time. And so, no, we didn't change that. We left that in this bill because we felt that it was important if someone was convicted of selling of drugs, then statistics are showing us now that 70% of those arrested during the last month that they were arrested, 70% of them were users. And so we think that the governor's veto objection is wrong, that in fact many of these sellers are users and they could benefit from the program. Though that's what the facts are. And so the bill is attempting to appeal to common sense that our state is in a crisis in our prison system with 70% of our prisoners returning. New York has a recidivism rate in the 30s. They have the program, and if we're going to successfully rehabilitate and have a reentry strategy, it has to include food, and it doesn't cost our state. And so
Thank you, Mr. Swanson.
That's the point.
Did you have a question? Or make it?
Yes. Brief question, then brief comment. Of the District Attorneys Association, what is the policy concern?
The policy concern is the program integrity of public assistance, allowing the benefits to potentially come back into the drug trade is the concern.
That was an argument when we used to have food stamps, but now that it's all electronic debit, that's not really possible or doable, and that's been confirmed by our state auditor.
My understanding of, I'm not calling you a liar or anything. I just the experience we've seen is that these cards, just like the stamps, can be transferred. The card, there's a physical, like an ATM card, and then a PIN code that goes along with that, and those things could be sold just as easily as food stamps could be.
But that's, and I'm not calling you a liar, but that's not what was found in the state audit.
Okay, well, I think it's possible. Maybe
I think we
don't
get
want to start a
the general-
colloquy here.
And then with regard to policy matter, what a lot of people don't understand is that we're in this situation as a result of an act of Congress when they were in the midst of making changes to welfare in the late 90s. There was a last-minute floor amendment which had no public comment or debate because it was a floor amendment, which put a lifetime prohibition for participation in food stamps for anyone convicted of any kind of drug crime. There was an opt-out provision which allows states to consider what this bill does. But we need to remember that rapists, murderers, child molesters, armed bank robbers are eligible for food stamps. This makes imminent sense. And with regard to the fiscal, Madam Chair, as this goes to suspense, it's important to note, and I think this was in the state audit, or I can certainly help identify it if your staff's not seen it, that because this allowance for greater participation in our food stamp program would allow low-income folks who would benefit to then spend their few dollars on taxable items rather than a non-taxable food, because that would take care of by the food stamps, there's actually another $15 or $20 in sales tax that the state would benefit.
Thank you, Mr. Leno. There are costs identified in the analysis, and even a 1% increase in the caseload could add up to about $2 million. So it certainly is eligible for suspense, Mr. Swanson, and unless there is objections, it'll go to the suspense file. Seeing none, it goes to suspense. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Ms. Lowenthal, I think you're next.
Skinner wasn't here.
Ms. Lowenthal, you have two items, AB 682 and AB 719. Do you want to start with 682?
Yes, thank you, Madam
Welcome.
Chair. Senators, just a couple of words about AB 682, which I understand is headed for the suspense file.
Yes, it is.
AB 682 is a response to the growing concern about fraud in the in-home supportive services program. It calls for a report from the Department of Social Services detailing how much money is lost to fraud and how many individuals have been convicted of fraud. While the study in itself won't directly reduce fraud, it should illuminate patterns that will show us the most efficient ways of identifying and catching cheaters. So I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. And you have some testimony?
Robert Harris, Madam Chair, on behalf of California United Home Care Workers, representing the home care workers in 25 rural California counties. No one cares more about program integrity in IHSS, absolutely no one, than the workers in the program and the recipients. But in order to address fraud, you have to know what fraud is and have to discover ways to uncover the patterns of fraud so you can attack it and stop it. And that's the purpose of this bill, and that's why we're so grateful to the Assemblywoman for carrying it.
Thank you. Next, please.
Deborah Roth with SEIU United Long-Term Care Workers, proud to be sponsoring this bill. And the news stories of the recent weeks with numbers flying around underscore the importance of this bill in really getting us an accurate determination of what's going on.
Thank you. Further testimony in favor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Don Shinsky on behalf of the California Association of Public Authorities in strong support.
In strong support. Okay. Any further testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
No file.
Members, unless there's objections, this meets the criteria for suspense file, so go to suspense. And Ms. Lowenthal, you can go on to SB 719.
Thank you. Because
and this is also a candidate for suspense.
This is a candidate for the suspense. I will try to be brief. As you know all too well, foster youth who age out of the system face a very difficult first year as adults. One way to give these young people a softer landing and a better chance at a productive life is to provide them with federally funded food stamps for 1 year. This bill establishes a transitional food stamp program for foster youth and will help provide a basic level of support to these vulnerable youth as they exit care, simply helping them put food on the table. We are working on amendments to address the fiscal issues. I have Frank Mecca with the County Welfare Directors Association of California, or his replacement, here to answer any questions that you may have, and I would respectfully request your aye vote when the time is appropriate.
Thank you, Ms. Lowenthal. You can state your position. Go right ahead.
Farrah McDade Ting with the California State Association of Counties and also representing the County Welfare Directors Association in support of the bill.
Thank you. Next, please.
Jolena Vorse with the Urban Counties Caucus in support.
Casey Kaneko of Suter & Associates on behalf of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and the City and County of San Francisco in support.
Very good, and you've got some more witnesses behind you. Thank you.
Mike Carroll, Western Center on Law and Poverty, in support.
Thank you.
Lillian Clark, National Association of Social Workers, in support.
Martha Flemmer, representing the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, in support.
Thank you. Any further testimony in support? Is there any opposition testimony? Finance? No comment from Finance. Members, again, it's a suspense candidate. Without objection, then we'll send it to suspense. Thank you, Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you.
Let's see. Mr. Adams, welcome. And you're presenting AB 595.
Thank you, Senator.
Members, this bill was designated or described as may meeting the criteria for referral to suspense. But I want to point out to you that there are significant savings starting immediately. There's also over $1 billion, I think, in federal funding, matching money that is dependent on this legislation or something similar. So I would recommend a do pass after we hear from our the presenter and the witnesses.
Thank you very much, Senator and members. Yes, this bill does do two things. It simply reinstates languages that inadvertently dropped out when the bill was Mr. Agazarian's bill was chaptered last year. That brings this law back into conformity with federal law, helping to ensure that the $1 billion that we do receive in federal TANF funds continues to flow to the state of California. Members, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
And your witness.
Robert Smith, once again from California Department of Social Services. We are the sponsors of this bill, and this is language that was before you last year to bring California in compliance for receipt of Title IV funds, and we're bringing this language back once again to correct the chaptering out issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, that should have been a motion to pass.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Finance is in support of this measure. The funding for the activities associated with this bill are already in the 2009-10 local assistance budget for the Department of Social Services. Failure to implement the provisions outlined in this bill could result in federal funding sanctions and loss of federal funding totaling over $1.6 billion.
And I failed to call for opposition testimony if there is any. Seeing none, we have a motion, members do pass, from Senator Cox. If there's no comments, we'll open the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
Aye.
Cox, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Wolk?
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee?
And this one committee, right?
8-0.
8-0. We'll keep it open, Mr. Adams, for the absent members.
Thank you, Senator. Members.
Thank you. Mr. Fong? And you're presenting two bills, AB 611 and AB 669. You are presenting 669.
Yes.
That's another one, members, that we think well, I'll wait till I get there.
Okay. Okay, AB 611.
There you go.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members. AB 611 will require the California Emergency Management Agency, CalEMA, to consider the safety needs of limited English-speaking communities during any disaster. It will require the director to collaborate with local ethnic community-based organizations and ethnic media outlets to disseminate disaster preparedness information. Coordinating communication will go a long way in saving lives and minimizing injuries and diminishing damages for Californians. The cost should be minimal because we're asking CalEMA to work within the resources. The bill has received bipartisan support from the Assembly floor and the Senate or Government Organization Committee. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Very good. Ms. Corbett, you made the motion. Thank you, and we'll take the witness testimony.
Santosh C. Ram Santana, representing Asian Americans for Civil Rights and Equity, in support of the bill. Thank you.
Next, please.
Good afternoon. Ginger Silvera with the California Catholic Conference, in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other testimony in favor?
Thank you. Don Shinsky on behalf of the California Academy of Family Physicians in support.
Thank you. Any further testimony in support? Is there any opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
CalEMA would incur costs related to the translation and production of emergency-related materials. Staffing and associated travel costs related to this measure are estimated to be $108,000 general fund in 910 and $932,000 general fund annually thereafter. Costs related to the producing and relating updating translated materials could range from $500,000 general fund to $1 million general fund.
That's entirely different than what we do for the department itself. We have minor and absorbable in the out years ongoing. Right. So do we. Finance, we did not identify costs that high and found in the out years likely absorbable costs ongoing. So that we are recommending the do pass.
I have a question then.
Mr. Senator Cox.
Mr. Fong, do you currently know, or do you know currently what the agency is doing now with respect to providing emergency services relative to where there's limited English proficiency? Aren't they doing that now, sir?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, I believe, in fact, they are, and that raises the issue of why we need this bill if, in fact, the emergency service folks are doing precisely what you're asking them to do.
Okay, go ahead.
Our research shows that there isn't an organized system in place for our limited English proficiency populations. City and county governments and disaster preparedness nonprofits are not providing information in the language of the population that they serve.
I think rather that they're sort of doing it each agency by agency.
Yes,
right? It is getting done in some areas.
The difficulty. Okay.
We think our numbers are right.
Okay. It does seem to me that we are in the United States of America, and that we ought to make some sort of accommodation. But if, in fact, that we're doing that now, and we come along and put something in statute that even enhances that, Mr. Fong, I'm not sure that's good for the general population of the state of California specifically, and the United States in general. And particularly, it's my understanding that we're currently doing precisely what you want done.
Well, I wasn't aware of that. They were doing it. But CalEMA indicated to our office the costs were going to be minor and absorbable, and there's no translation required.
Stick with that. Members, what I would suggest is that both the staff and the committee on both sides have looked at this and not come up with significant costs. I do think it's eligible for a do pass, and Ms. Corbett made that motion. So we'll call the roll.
Kehoe?
Unless there's any other further comments. Okay, so call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
No.
Cox, no. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee? 7-1.
7-1. That's enough?
The ones that-
You have enough votes, Mr. Fong, but I'm going to keep the roll open for the absent members or there are members in other committees. And now you have, you're going to present on the residency requirements for foster children?
Yes.
And members, this again was one of these may meet the criteria for referral to suspense, but we believe that there are savings that would be helpful and a very small impact, not knowing how many, not savings exactly, but that we don't, the enrollment could be fairly small and the impacts to the budget would not be very large. So I would recommend a do pass.
Madam Chair, before Mr. Fong begins in, I would make that motion.
Quite thank you, Senator Cox.
Thank you.
But nevertheless, let's have a brief presentation and hear from your witnesses.
Okay. Madam Chair and Senators, AB 669 reduces barriers to help foster youth to go to college. Specifically, this bill will create an exception to the uniform residency requirement for emancipated foster youth who are age 19 and older, which will allow these students to pay California resident in-state tuition. Currently, a foster youth becomes emancipated after his or her 18th birthday. Legally, at this point, the foster youth is on his or her own. For purposes of applying to college and determining when the student is eligible for in-state tuition, it takes 1 year and 1 day before a student can establish residency. Until that time, the student's residency is based on that of his or her parents. For foster youth, this gap represents a problem because, as many wards of the state, they may or may not be in contact with their biological parents, or their biological parents may no longer reside in California. Emancipated foster youth who have not been able to establish residency because of legal barriers delay enrollment for years or do not enroll in college at all. AB 669 makes it easier for former foster youth to establish residency. It will eliminate the unintentional barrier, which will help make the transition into higher education institution as easy as possible. This bill has received support from various community colleges and has no opposition. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Fong. Witnesses, please.
Hello?
Yeah.
There we go. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'm Mike McGee with the California Community College's Chancellor's Office. We're the sponsor of this measure. I also have with me Vice Chancellor Linda Michalowski, who's with the Student Services and Special Programs to answer any technical questions. As you have introduced the bill and as Assemblymember Fung has spoken about it, we believe this bill will help basically a small number of students make sure that they receive the residency that's due them as wards of the California and the California system. We do not think that the costs are that significant. It really comes down to the assumptions that you're looking at. We appreciate the work we've had with your committee staff and minority staff and also the Department of Finance in getting them as much detailed information as possible. But we have the number of unfunded FTESs. We also have a system with our Board of Governors fee waivers on how that is funded, where we don't believe that the cost will be that significant. And I'll let Vice Chancellor Michalowski answer any questions on that.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. When a student receives a Board of Governors enrollment fee waiver, the full amount of the waiver is not funded to the college. In fact, it's built into the calculation of funds that the college will receive as foregone fee revenue. And it's only 2% of the amount of fees waived that is actually provided to the college, comparable to the 2% of enrollment fee revenues a college keeps when a student pays their own fees. As a result, we believe the cost of this bill is closer to $4,000 and is very much under your limit.
Thank you.
So we urge you to pass it, please.
Thank you. Next, please.
Madam Chair and Committee, Bonnie Slauson representing the Community College League and the 72 districts throughout our community colleges in California. As you heard earlier on another bill, foster youth are very vulnerable. They face many, many challenges in their lives, which are barriers to succeeding in life. We believe that this bill will help them to remove one of those barriers and hope that they will attend college and become productive citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have further testimony?
Kevin Wolfork with the California Post-Secondary Education Commission, also in support for the reasons stated earlier.
Thank you.
Lori Nujura for the California Student Aid Commission, in strong support.
Thank you. Any further testimony in favor? Is there any opposition testimony? Finance comment?
The Department of Finance's estimates are significantly higher than those you've heard so far. We believe that that it would create a Proposition 98 general fund cost pressures between $500,000 and $1 million as a result of more students attending the community colleges, and it would also create a reimbursable state-mandated local program. Additionally, we believe that there could be general fund cost pressures in the tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to backfill the lost revenue to UC and CSU.
Community colleges, is the community college want to respond to that? Very briefly, just to give the members the information.
We believe the numbers of students affected are small. We currently have 70,000 unfunded FTES in the system. We believe that this could possibly increase that number slightly, but we believe that these students deserve a fair chance to go to college and would like to see them have that opportunity as California residents.
But does that change the number?
Our estimate is approximately 220 students statewide in the community colleges who would be affected by this.
Would be eligible?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My understanding is UC and CSU have said they have very few, if any, students who would fall into this category because they are already finding ways to work with existing law to make them state residents.
All right. Thank you.
Just to where our number comes from, we assumed that 300 or about 5% of the students would be impacted by this for CCC, and I don't have right in front of me the CSU and UC number. But so we were looking at a slightly higher, about 80 more students than they were.
Okay. Yes.
I made the motion, Madam Chair.
Right. Let's see then. We heard from Finance. There's no opposition. Members, we have a motion from Senator Cox. Unless there's any more discussion, I'll open the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
Aye.
Cox, aye. Corbett? Denham? Denham, aye. Hancock? Hancock, aye. Leno? Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee?
7-0. We'll keep the roll open, Mr. Fong, for the absent members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And let's, Mr. Ruskin, you're next. And this is AB 926, yes, state contracts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill adds a sentence to state contracts telling contractors that they must obey the loss leader law. The loss leader law prohibits sales below cost with the intent to injure competitors or destroy competition. The Department of General Services has already done this for at least one contract, and I believe they can add these few words at little cost. This bill is sponsored by the California Small Business Association and the California Black Chamber of Commerce, who have been working with me for over a year to improve the way California works with small businesses. We believe that by bringing more attention to the loss leader law, we can protect the ability of small businesses and disabled veteran-owned small businesses in the state to be legitimately competitive with large business. AB 926 has received 0 no votes. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ruskin. Your witness?
None.
Oh, all right. Any testimony in favor? Any opposition testimony? Thank you, Senator Denham. Finance, you have a comment?
We believe that costs would be minor and absorbable.
All righty. We have a motion from Senator Denham. There's no further discussion. We'll open the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
Aye.
Cox, aye. Corbett? Denham? Denham, aye. Hancock? Hancock, aye. Leno? Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee? 7-0.
7-0. That's enough votes, but we'll keep it open for the absent members, Mr. Ruskin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Skinner, going in file order. And Hello. You have 3 items. SB 643 is a suspense candidate, Ms. Skinner, so you can start with that one.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members. Assembly Bill 643 would basically allow food stamp recipients to follow a comparable intercounty transfer system as exists now for CalWORKS and Medi-Cal. So in other words, if you are a recipient of food stamps and you're forced through some reason or another, whether it's a job loss or foreclosure or eviction, to have to move to a different county, at the moment you have to completely reapply for your food stamp benefit. If you are a CalWORK or Medi-Cal recipient and you must move to another county, you do not have to reapply for the benefit. There is in existence an intercounty transfer. So what AB 643 does is allow food stamp recipients to have a similar intercounty transfer. The bill eliminates barriers to food stamp participation, streamlines the application process, and reduces administrative time and costs when processing food stamp applications. According to the analysis, the 643 would make the food stamp program less burdensome, and we have worked out gradual implementation amendments with stakeholders to address modification costs and to provide extra time for training and software upgrades. In your committee analysis, it indicates that the cost is upwards to $500,000 due to an upgrade in the automation, the computer systems for the county workers. The appropriations staff in the other house had a different price, lower. We are trying to work with Department of Social Services to try to identify a time where the computer upgrade would occur, or whether there would be a change in the automation software so that the actual implementation could be done at that time to reduce the costs.
There's also one other cost factor, Ms. Skinner, and that is under this bill, the old county, so to speak, would send the records to the new county, which is something they're currently not required to do. So we need to deal with that issue while it's in suspense also.
Okay. Okay.
Should we hear from your witnesses?
Yes,
thank you. I'm Kevin Esden, Coalition California Welfare Rights Organizations. Basically what this bill does, rather than having a person come in and make an application, which could take 2-3 hours, and you have to go back and forth 2-3 times, all that you have to do in lieu of that, and that would mean that would be 3-4 hours. It's about a 20-minute process to take the information from one county and zip it to the other county. That's all. So this bill actually saves money. And this problem emanates from a number of counties, including San Diego County, where San Diego is the last county in the state.
Country, the lowest
in the
enrollment
country,
in
right?
the United States.
And I mean, and SPIN has called me up and talked to me about this bill, and they like this bill because this would enhance participation in the food stamp program. There's about 20,000 families that go through this application process, which is not necessary. It's clogging up the system, and all we're trying to do is unclog the system, and it saves money. Thank you.
Is there further testimony in favor? Is there any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
No file.
Members, this is a candidate for suspense. Unless there's objections, it'll go into the suspense file. That's that. And then, Ms. Skinner, you want to take up AB 999.
Yes, thank you. AB 99, first I want to start with thanking the committee staff for working with my office to reduce the costs of this legislation. What AB 99 does is provide a balanced system of incentives and discipline which will allow youth in state Department of Justice, juvenile justice prisons to earn earlier parole consideration, parole board dates, through satisfactory participation in education and rehab programs. The bill does not in any way reduce a youth's sentence. It solely allows them to earn through their own responsible actions an earlier opportunity to go before the parole board. It eliminates the Department of Juvenile Justice's outdated use of time ads, a less than effective practice that contributes to disproportionately long sentences for youth in California. Youth sentenced in California's indeterminate sentencing scheme spend much longer time in prison than young people do convicted of the same offenses in other states. The CDCR data shows that a full third of the time spent in state prison by our youth is due to these outdated time ads. And on average, youth are getting 12 months of additional time because of the time ad practice. The committee analysis estimates that the bill has the potential to save up to $134 million per year. It also notes that the bill will not result in early release, but will allow wards to earn, through their own efforts and discipline, an earlier opportunity to go before the parole board. I am joined by Sumaya Waheed, the attorney and state policy director for Books Not Bars.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Again, I'm Sumaya Waheed with Books Not Bars. We're based in Oakland. We represent hundreds of families of incarcerated youth from across the state of California. And those families are the ones who came to us with this bill idea to improve the incentive and discipline system inside the Division of Juvenile Justice. It's based on research that shows that the incentives that are in the bill are proven to have a correlation with better recidivism rates for youth, particularly with the youth who tend to go to our state's DJJ, the ones who have conduct disorders, mental illness challenges. So not only do we expect that this bill will improve outcomes for youth upon release, but also the day-to-day institutional security. So it's an added benefit that it should save hundreds of millions of dollars.
Thank you. Next, please.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. As you're all well aware, anything we can do for recidivism is a huge benefit to the state.
Thank you. Additional testimony in favor. Is there opposition testimony? Come right up.
Madam Chair and members, Corey Salzello on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association. In the interest of time, our opposition is based on policy grounds again.
Okay. Finance, do you have a comment? Thank you.
We believe that this bill would likely reduce the amount of time served by wardens in DJJ facilities, which would in turn reduce general fund costs. The savings are unknown, but may be significant.
All righty. Ms. Hancock.
I would just like to ask if the policy grounds could be
explained in a little more detail.
Explained in a little more detail.
The main concerns with the bill. First, wards that are sentenced to the Department of Juvenile Justice are sentenced on an indeterminate basis. They're not sentenced to a fixed period of time like adults are. Time credits are a feature of a determinate sentencing system, not an indeterminate sentencing system, so we don't agree with the policy of mixing those two. Second, DJJ's mission is to rehabilitate minors, and so offering an opportunity for an earlier parole consideration date for things that they already should be doing is concerning to us policy-wise. Removing time ads, that can be a useful tool, just it's the stick and part of the carrot and the stick. And finally, we've gone over the last 13 years down from a population from over 10,000 wards in the system to under 1,700. What's left are the hardcore offenders, and so taking away tools of DJJ is inappropriate.
Any further comments?
I don't have any further comments.
Have a
I generally
motion.
believe in carrots.
Yes, okay. Was it your motion, Mr. Leno?
Yes.
Have a motion by Mr. Leno. Will you open the roll?
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
No.
Cox, no. Corbett? Denham? Denham, no. Hancock? Hancock, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee?
5-2. We need
5 to 2. You need 2 more votes, Ms. Skinner, and we'll keep the roll open for the absent members.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And you have international trade as well.
Certainly.
1276.
AB 1276, it's increasingly clear that international trade rules affect state sovereignty and can have an impact on state policies and state rights. Many common state procurement, investment, or other policies could be challenged under the rules of various trade agreements. AB 1276 would protect California by prohibiting the unilateral binding of the state to terms of any future international trade agreements. It is a step to ensure that while we are encouraging expanded trade, we are also safeguarding the state legislature's jurisdiction over decisions with respect to non-trade policies. According to the analysis, the bill has no direct fiscal impact, and it has a wide range of support from over 16 organizations. 5 states, including Rhode Island, Hawaii, Maryland, Maine, and Minnesota, have already addressed this problem legislatively, and many more states are currently considering doing so also. Here to testify in support is Caitlin Vega from the California Labor Fed.
And before we do that, Ms. Skinner, there was a veto of a similar bill. Do you have any comments on that? Have you addressed the veto problem?
Yes. Liz Figueroa introduced a similar bill, SB 348, in 2005. We are reintroducing this bill because of the lack of legislative oversight. And this is, I think that perhaps, and I don't know this, but I think that perhaps the original bill was viewed as somehow trying to tie a current governor's hands. That's not the intent of the bill. The bill is governor neutral. The bill is really would just enables the legislature to be able to weigh in before any governor or any other entity, any other constitutional state officer agrees to any kind of international trade agreements.
Very good. And your testimony, please.
Madam Chair and members, Caitlin Vega for the California Labor Federation here in support. We've all seen the impact that trade agreements can have on our economy, on jobs, on the type of jobs that are created, on procurement practices, and the types of, and the way that these trade agreements can overturn and at times conflict with our state laws. It seems to us that this bill makes a lot of sense because it allows the legislature to have a process of vetting and reviewing these trade agreements to ensure that they are consistent with the values of our state and promoting the best economic policies for our state. So we're here in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further testimony in favor? Is there any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
I don't have a file on this measure.
All righty. Mr. Leno moves the bill. Any comments? Will you please open the roll?
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
No.
Cox, no. Corbett? Denham? Denham, no. Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Oropesa. Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee? 5-2.
5-2. You need 2 more votes, Ms. Skinner. We'll keep the roll open for the absent members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Mr. Huffman, and you're presenting one item, AB 1442, and you have some amendments.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The committee has the amendments, I believe, and this is a committee bill. It makes various technical changes to the Fish and Game Code and clarifications. I'd be happy to detail those for you if you wish, but it's had bipartisan support and no votes to date.
Thank you for your brevity. Unless there's
the bill in support of Mr. Huffman's brevity.
Oh, thank you, and that's as amended. Is it testimony in favor? Okay. Any testimony in favor in the audience? Any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
We believe costs would be minor.
And we agree with you. Excellent. We have a motion from Senator Cox. There's no further discussion. Will you open the roll?
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Aye. Cox, aye. Corbett? Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Leno? Oropesa? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee? 6-0.
6-0. You need one more, Mr. Huffman. We have 2 committees operating, so we'll keep the roll open for the absent members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, we'll return to waive presentation items. That would be Mr. Fuentes. Okay. Well, before we get to Mr. Fuentes, we have an additional letter from Assemblymember De Leon waiving presentation on AB 125 on the retirement system. This is a candidate for suspense members. Is there testimony in favor of AB 125? Thank you. We'll wait for you to get up here. You don't have to run. This is AB 125 by Mr. De Leon on the retirement savings program.
Yes, Julia Hassel, representing AARP. And
The problem is that there are too many Californians who do not have the option to save for retirement through payroll deductions. And about 6 million Californians, roughly 43% of the state's workforce, go to work at a job that does not offer them a pension or a retirement savings plan to supplement Social Security. Nationally, more than 75 million Americans and 10 million California workers do not participate in a employee-sponsored retirement plan, and as a result, 40% of today's baby boomers rely solely on Social Security benefits for more than 90% of their retirement income. But Social Security alone, which averages $1,081 a month in California, will not be enough to sustain Californians in their retirement. This lack of retirement savings may result in higher costs for government services, as seniors without savings are more likely to require government assistance with housing, medical care, and other necessities. And people save best through payroll deductions. California workers need a seamless, lifelong retirement savings system, providing them with the opportunity to build their assets and help attain financial stability through a secure, portable savings account.
Thank you. Very good. Other testimony in favor?
Yes, Casey Konecka of Suter & Associates on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, which believes that this measure would provide an option for both our small businesses and residents who otherwise don't have access to good portable retirement systems. So we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? All righty. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down.
We'll try to be brief, Madam Chair and members. Ted Angelo with the Association of California Life and Health Insurance Companies. We agree that we need to change savings habits to reduce stress on Social Security. The committee analysis does a great job identifying the fiscal policy issues, with CalPERS expanding its role. It's very comprehensive and covers the costs that any company would face setting up and selling similar products. We'll admit that the industry needs to do a better job creating awareness of the many low-cost and portable options available to individuals and small businesses. How to do this might be a better focus of a study, whether it be through a public-private partnership, marketing effort, or a clearinghouse of available products through banks, brokerage houses, insurers, mutual funds, payroll providers. So I'll limit my comments to that.
Oh, could you, before you finish, what are the many low-cost options available to low-income savers or small amount savers?
Well, they're the ones I just mentioned through the banks, brokerage houses, insurers, mutual funds, and payroll providers, as well as through...
So you mean a regular savings account or an IRA or a money market?
Right.
Okay, thank you. I just wondered if I was unaware of some little pot of gold that I might be overlooking.
Madam Chair and members, Joanne Betancourt, representing the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association, regrettably opposed. To be brief, while we do share similar goals for retirement that the bill does, we do not believe that the solution is having CalPERS offer IRAs or simple IRAs to the private sector. We do believe that the private sector already offers employers a number of good low-cost retirement options, for example, like IRAs and simple IRAs. We'd be pleased to assist the legislature in developing a broad campaign, but we do not believe that AB 125 is the solution at this time. Thank you.
Next, please.
Michael Shaw with the National Federation of Independent Business. We represent approximately 22,000 small independent businesses here in the state of California, and our issues relate to what's already been said. However, we go further in creating that this bill creates an additional public competitor for private enterprise. Small businesses that offer these types of services and programs, investment opportunities, would now find themselves competing against a very significant new player in the market, in some ways subsidized by the state, though we do recognize the fees that would be associated with this program. However, we agree that the money invested in this would be better spent in encouraging savings in existing private programs that are available. Also, given the status of the economy right now, I think savings is not on the top of many people's minds. It's more on the top of whether or not they're able to pay their mortgage, their car payment, and pay for food. So it's questionable whether or not this program would have any significant effect on savings rates in California.
All righty. Thank you. Next, sir, or ma'am.
Good afternoon. Sherry McHugh, representing the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors of California. NAFA represents over 4,000 insurance agents and financial planners in the state. We have agents in every community in every town that are available, affordable, accessible to individuals that are looking for retirement planning options. We strongly support the goal of the Assemblyman and believe that we all should be encouraging individuals to save for retirement. However, we are very concerned about spending millions of dollars to build an infrastructure within CalPERS and EDD to, set up a system that may or may not be utilized by individuals. We think this is more of a financial literacy issue, that we need to do more to encourage people to save for retirement and plan for their golden years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Madam Chair and members, Tom Bone on behalf of the American Council of Life Insurers. We too are concerned about the way this bill would operate. Obviously, the costs of this are pretty well set out in the analysis. The fact is that private companies have already expended a lot of this money in setting up these programs. What we'd rather do is work with the state as a partner rather than as a competitor. So we'd ask for your no vote.
Thank you very much. Additional testimony? Finance, you have a comment? You have a pretty thick file on this one.
The Department of Finance estimates that this could increase costs, state costs, by approximately $25.6 million in general fund in fiscal year 9-10, and $15.9 million general fund in 10-11, and every year thereafter, assuming that the nonprofit or private entity does not fund the program. Given the state's current budget condition, we do not believe that the general fund can sustain additional pressures. Additionally, existing federal law provides for tax-qualified retirement plans and a variety of individual retirement accounts by which employers and private citizens can save for retirement.
Thank you. Thank you. Members, there are significant costs with AB 125. It's a candidate for suspense, so unless there's objections, it will go there. And our next bill is, this is those items that presentation has been waived. It's AB 395 by Mr. Fuentes on employment apprenticeship. On employment apprenticeship, is there testimony in favor of AB 395? Any opposition testimony on AB 395? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Finance believes the bill is premature given the recently enacted SB 9 in the second extraordinary session, which made significant changes to the enforcement model for public works projects. The Division of Apprenticeship Standards would need about 1.5 consultants and Industrial Relations Council 4. For a total cost of $187,000 in 9-10 and $340,000 ongoing.
This is a suspense candidate, members. If there's no objection, the item will go to suspense. And that was Mr. Fuentes, AB 395. Next is AB 727 by Mr. Nielsen. This is also a suspense candidate on California Prompt Act payment. Is there testimony in favor of AB 727? Testimony in favor of AB 727. Any opposition testimony to AB 727? Finance, do you have a comment?
Well, we believe it is important that state agencies pay their bills on time. Unforeseen circumstances, such as a late budget or a freeze on the use of bond funds, could prevent payments from going out in a timely manner. To the extent that these payments to resource conservation districts are delayed, this bill would require that late payment penalties be paid, which would have to be paid from the general fund, and the Department of Finance is opposed to this measure.
I'm going to ask him to go tell them now that they need to come in order to vote.
Can I open the room? Because Hancock has to be.
Sure, sure.
Let's get rid of this one first.
Okay.
This is, thank you, Finance. This is SB 727, correct? Yes. Is there opposition? Come right up, sir, and let us know what your opposition is. It is going to suspense.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members. I'm Robert Eagle. I'm the Legislative Director for the State Water Resources Control Board. Our concerns are pretty much the same as the Department of Finance just indicated. We're supportive and sympathetic to the plight of the resource conservation districts. However, we think that the bill could result in significant costs to state agencies, including the State Water Board, to the extent that we incur unanticipated delays in providing grant payments. We always seek to make timely grant payments, but the bill would unreasonably subject state agencies to having to make payments if there were delays in the enactment of the state budget, if there were delays in the ability to make bond payments. And those costs would be general fund costs, and at this point, we have to oppose the bill.
Thank you. We're on AB 727. That is a candidate for suspense. Unless there's objections, it'll go to the suspense file. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I ask, and you're going to open the roll, I believe.
Mr. Price was amazed.
And I understand that, but I'm wondering if the sergeants could call the respective committees and tell them that we're in the final stages of this wrap-up and ask them to leave the EQ for just a moment, as well as the business and professions.
Thank you, Senator Cox. Let's see. Then we are on now Mr. De La Torre's AB 985. This is discriminatory restrictions, also a candidate for suspense. Is there testimony on AB 985? Any testimony in favor? Any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
I do not have a file.
If there's no objections, then, members, this will go to suspense. Ms. Salas, what happened to Perez? Oh, that's a 28.8. AB 1083 is a 28.8. Okay, then the last item on the file at this point is AB 1570 by Salas, AB 1570 by Ms. Salas on veterans service providers, also a candidate for suspense. Is there testimony in favor of this bill? Is there opposition testimony? Just walking around. Okay. Any other testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Finance is opposed to this measure because it would create a general fund pressure by requiring Veterans Affairs to perform new tasks without providing guaranteed funding mechanism.
Thank you. If there's no objections, members, this one will go to suspense. Mr. Price, you want to take up AB 31?
With pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Price, you're taking a technical amendment to add
Taking the
Senator...
technical amendments as suggested by staff. We appreciate that. Also adding Senator Denham as a co-author.
That is a technical amendment, I think.
And that's pretty technical.
So that, and this is
Possible suspense, it says.
maybe you could address the fiscal issues directly, Mr. Price, because the costs are unknown, but they're potentially significant. So why don't you start there?
Well, I will, and I'm going to defer to our representatives from the department to answer that technical question.
And this is our last item, members.
Yes, hi, I'm Robert Ulrey, representative, legislative representative from Department of General Services. What we want to do is point out, we just did a study. I think the concern was that if there's less competition, that contracts would cost a little bit more.
Correct.
And what we wanted to point out is we just did a study we had done by Sacramento State University's economics. And it points out that there is no additional cost when we do contracting with DVBEs or small businesses. What they did was they reviewed some of the past contracts that we have done in the past 3 to 5 years. Also did some polling on people who had presented or solicited during those bids. And they looked at it and they found that there was no real cost.
All righty, thank you. Next.
Michael Shaw of the National Federation of Independent Business. In strong support of AB 31, it creates an opportunity for more small businesses to compete with slightly larger contracts, which means that those businesses that are creating the jobs in California will have an opportunity to compete for more state dollars. Obviously, under the circumstances, that is a concern for some businesses, but we think that when the state rights its fiscal ship and gets that back on track, that this will be a benefit for small business. It will help stimulate their economy. Hence, California will benefit in terms of increased revenues.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Chris McKaylee on behalf of Natoma Technologies, which is a certified small business located here in Sacramento, in support.
Thank you very much. And you're with DGS, sir?
Yes.
Would you make sure the committee has a copy of that study?
Yes, I will. We just released it last night, so.
Thank you.
Out of the press.
Is there any opposition to this bill? Is there additional testimony? Neither opposition nor?
Positive.
Your support, okay, fine,
We're in
good.
support. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. Rich Dryden, Executive Director of the California DVBE Alliance, and also today at their request representing California Small Business Association in strong support of passage of this. Aye votes to move it out of committee. One point that I think is very critical, the $130,000 loss that was noted in the committee's overview, it should be pointed out that just, for example, execution of the good faith effort is a very expensive item, and it's not done under these informal bid processes. So when you expand the number of contracts from 5,000 past $100,000 to $250,000, you pick up a lot of contracts that will not have the good faith effort executed. It's going to save an amazing amount of time, paper, and manpower.
Thank you. Additional testimony in favor, or go right ahead.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Frank Ramirez. I'm a small businessman, small business advocate, member of the Caltrans Small Business Council, and National Director of the American Indian Veterans Association Governmental Affairs Office, in strong support of AB 31. The testimony just given regarding the impact is minimal cost-wise, but the impact in terms of small business is major, and strong support.
Thank you. Next, please.
Julian Canetti, representing California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce, in strong support.
Thank you. Further testimony?
Sorry. Get up here as quick as I could. Excuse me. Lori Kammerer, Small Business California, in opposition to AB 31. We are trying to work.
You're in opposition. Okay,
yes, I thought I better get that out quickly before you're thinking we're support. It's a very difficult position for us to be, opposing this bill, because last year we sat next to Assemblymember Price, then Assemblymember Price, supporting this bill. But since that time, we have met with several certified small businesses, primarily those who deal with the food contracts, and it turns out that the bill, by increasing from $100,000 to $250,000, is going to decimate the food purchase for food employers who purchase and contract with the state on foods. The $250,000 increase is good for IT and for larger dollar items, but for smaller dollar items that are include food and goods and services, this bill could potentially hurt those certified small businesses.
All righty. Thank you. Any other testimony on this bill? Mr. Price, do you want to respond to the food vendors?
Well, certainly we met with them. We certainly are sensitive to their concerns. We think they are somewhat isolated. We think the vast majority of small disadvantaged businesses will be served with this legislation, and it gives the department another tool in the toolbox to help encourage economic revitalization in our state, and we urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Finance, do you have a comment?
Not to restate the Department of General Services comments, we do believe that there would be savings as a result of this bill to the extent that departments and governmental entities use the small business option for these contracts. It would have reduced workload.
We agree that savings could occur, and Mr. Denham has moved the bill, so this would be a due pass. We are on, Senator Denham. We are on AB 31, members, for those of you who are just coming in. Motion by Senator Denham. You open the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Cox, aye. Corbett? Corbett, aye. Denham? Denham, aye. Hancock? Hancock, I. Leno. Leno, I. Oropesa. Price.
Aye.
Price, I. Runner. Runner, I. Walters. Walters, I. Wolk. Wolk, I. Wyland. Wyland, I. Yee. Yee, I. 12-0.
12-0, that bill is out.
Thank you, members.
Alrighty, now, do we want to go back to the top of the file? Ms. Woke, before you take off, we're going to go back to the file. Have you missed any votes? Okay, thank you.
We're just starting basically file order, which would be that.
File order and just the ones that are incomplete, right?
Well, well, the ones that were all on call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
This last time, yeah.
Correct, okay. What's the first one?
Kokorian, 548.
Members, we're going to go back to the file, those bills that are still on call. Okay, we kept it open if there's another committee hearing going on. And the first item is AB 548 by Mr. Krikorian. 548 by Mr. Krikorian, state mandates. Will you call the absent members?
Hancock. Hancock, I. Oropesa. Price. Price, I. Walters. Walters, I. Wyland. Wyland, I. Yee. Yee, I. Yes. 12-0.
12-0, that bill is out.
Madam Chair, would you just also announce the...
Chair and the vice chair. Be happy to. And the next one is AB 595 by Mr. Adams. And the chair and the vice chair are both aye on this. Call the absent members, please. This is AB 595 by Mr. Adams.
Oropesa. Runner. Runner, I. Walters. Walters, I. Wyland. Wyland, I. Yee. Yee, I. 12-0.
12-0, that bill is out. And the next one is AB 611 by Mr. Fong. This is emergency services. Kehoe is aye. Senator Cox is no. Will you call the absent members?
Oropesa. Runner. Walters. Wyland. Yee. Yee, I. 8-1.
8-1, that bill is out. And our next one is AB 669 also by Mr. Fong, excuse me. This is education residency requirements for, is this the foster students? Yes. The chair and the vice chair are both aye. Will you call the absent members?
Corbett. Aye. Corbett, I. Oropesa. Runner. Runner, I. Walters. Walters, I. Wyland. Wyland, I. Yee. Yee, I. 13-0.
13-0, that bill is out. Next one is AB 926 by Mr. Ruskin. AB 926, this is on state contracts. The chair and the vice chair are both aye. Will you call the absent members?
Corbett. Aye. Corbett, I. Oropesa. Runner. Aye. Runner, I. Walters. Aye. Walters, I. Wyland. Aye. Wyland, I. Yee. Aye. Yee, I. 12-0.
12-0, that bill is out. And our next one is AB 999. Is that right?
Yeah.
That is back on, that's Ms. Skinner's bill. On juvenile facilities, the chair is aye, the vice chair is no. Will you call the absent members?
Corbett. Aye. Corbett, I. Oropesa. Runner. No. Runner, no. Walters. No. Walters, no. Wyland. No. Wyland, no. Yee. Aye. Yee, aye. 7-5.
7-5, that bill is out. Our next item is AB 1276 by Ms. Skinner on international trade. The chair is aye and the vice chair is no. Please call the absent members.
Corbett. Aye. Corbett, aye. Oropesa. Runner. No. Runner, no. Walters. No. Walters, no. Wyland. Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee. Aye. Yee, aye. 8-4.
8-4, that bill is out. And our next item, and I think our final item, is that it?
Yes.
Is Mr. Huffman's AB 1442. The chair is aye and the vice chair is aye.
Corbett. Aye. Corbett, aye. Leno.
Aye.
Leno, I. Oropesa. Runner. Runner, I. Walters. Walters, I. Wyland. Wyland, I. Yee, I. 12-0.
12-0, that bill is out, members. That completes the file. Thank you all.
Thank you.